Welcome to the Why Isn't It Working Business and Tech podcast, talking all things business and tech in the emerging and enterprise space. Here are your hosts, Carl Wood and Michael Hamilton.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the podcast. Over to you, Carl.
Thanks, Michael. And we are definitely starting with a bang, popping our cherry with Stephen Wallace. So a big welcome to Stephen. He's one of the top DevOps consultants in the Australian market, founder of Meetup Madness with over 30,000 members who have signed up to basically upgrade their skills in the DevOps field. He's also the co-founder of BeerOps, which is definitely my stream, which is the largest DevOps and data networking event in Australia. Big field coach as well in the field of DevOps. So we are talking full DevOps on today's show. And you're currently working with Telstra as well as their go-to DevOps SME. So Stephen, welcome aboard. We've had a few tech issues, obviously, getting everything up and running, but it wouldn't be a technology podcast without someone's Zoom meeting dying out at some point.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. They used to say that 90% of everything going over the interwebs was all pornography. I say it's been updated. Now the comment goes along the lines of, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Anyway, there we go.
You're turning me on, Stephen. So yeah, let's we'll save the dirty talk for later.
I think it's the 2020 catchphrase now.
It is, isn't it? Absolutely. So welcome aboard. Look, Steve, give us a bit of an introduction about yourself. You know, your current position and the current journey, I guess you got to there for us and the audience as well.
Yeah, sure. So I've come from a bit of a sort of sysadmin background. Not from a development background at all, so I do tend to sort of pretend that I know things about development. I have come through the ranks of learning all about IT automation whilst I was working with a bunch of consulting companies. Started off with good old Puppet and then ended up working out that I fancy becoming a contractor and had a little think, how can I improve my chances to be able to earn some coin. So I decided if I go down and try and help maybe with the meetup group and maybe do one or two talks, then people may put two and two together and think, hey, that guy probably knows some stuff. Maybe we should give him a job. So that's how it all sort of started. Then it sort of kind of got under my skin a little bit. Started spinning up a few more meetups. Met some people that were sort of like-minded and we got to where we are today. There's actually over 50,000 people in the groups.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's almost at the point where it's actually starting to sound semi-serious.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, congratulations. And obviously a testament to your skills and helping to build that up to where it is. And I guess also a real emerging market, you know, from DevOps perspective as well. And I mean, it's sort of almost becoming a bit of a dirty word. No, I think that, you know, as you probably know, some of these problems are that someone runs with a buzzword in the industry and we get a lot of cowboys coming into it. But are you still seeing a strong demand, you know, for DevOps at the moment as well? Or have you seen the attitude shift more towards now, you know, digital transformation or something like that?
I think there's the demand is not slowing down, but I think that there's an awful lot of additional technology that is coming through, which is just ripe to disrupt. Which may involve an awful lot of people that think they've got secure positions currently. They may be having to reassess that unless they're smart and pay attention to what's happening out there.
Right. And with the with the meetup itself, what are you finding people come to it for? What's the primary reason they come?
Why do they come onto the events? Well, most people, and I think that this is a very reasonable sort of supposition, that they think you come along just to learn some stuff, you know, because there's a gender agnostic dude up the front that's put together a couple of slides, and it's an education thing. That's what you go along for. Over the years, I've probably learned a little bit more about the human condition a bit more, and I've updated my answer on that one. That I think it's actually fear that drives most people to come along. They may not realize it, but you know, everybody is struggling with the battle for relevance out there. So you know, we all want to remain relevant in a very fast-moving world. So we need to have a job to be able to maintain our lifestyles, to be able to make sure that the kid goes to a nice school, that the home loan gets paid. You can't do that without getting a job or a next contract. So how are you going to increase your chances to be able to do that? Well, you might want to come along to some of the meetup groups that we organize, because we can help to let you know what's happening, how the market's moving, and maybe what you should be paying attention to.
And what sort of topics or technology dominates your consistent kind of coverage with the actual meetups? Since I know you've got the work break groups and the other particular focuses. So what's the popular ones at the moment?
Yeah, well, it's always changing, as the tech landscape changes as well. It sort of started off around, configuration management was really buzzy. Continuous deployment, continuous integration, they're still very, very relevant there. But there's an awful lot more interest over the last sort of 6 to 12 months, I'd probably say, in the, not even so much the container space, because, like Docker and containers is becoming pretty well de facto, but learning how to do the orchestration, with them as well. So, the interest in and around Kubernetes has been significant. And also more recently, we've seen an awful lot more interest around Google's site reliability engineering, which I personally think is just awesome, because anything to try and align our code that delivers features and align it with customer value with more direct telemetry is bloody awesome. Bring it on.
Interesting. Is it more of and this is a good question, and Carl and I, we've talked about this over the years, it's more, obviously there's a business side to tech, of course, and in DevOps is very tech dominated, as we know, the word, the people, everyone we talk to. So are we finding that it's dominated by the technical discussions, or is the business outcome becoming a focus of your meetups too? Is that being discussed, or is it just the tech? Good question. No right or wrong answer.
It's funny. It's funny. It is funny that you should say that, because it is a constant point of frustration for me, and I don't know where the source of the problem is. But when I go out, and I'm a contractor, sort of 9 to 5. So when I go out to like bigger shops, like your Telstras and your Optus and all the rest of that, one of the first questions, when I'm asked, hey, can you help with some automation around this particular bit? One of the first questions I ask is, what is the team's service catalog? As in what does the team do that adds value for the business? So what do we do? Who do we do it for? As in who is our customer? Just trying to get through to that critical information that IT facilitates the business. And each of those service catalog items must be to try and help a business product. And there must be a business person who actually owns that product. So that's the boss of who all of the IT people are actually working for, but they don't realize it. And we see this massive gap, between the code and usually a non-existent or inaccessible product owner from a business perspective, which then makes IT, we are a business unto ourselves. And we just get on cutting code because somebody in IT thinks it's a good idea to create this particular feature. I see it so much. There's a great big gap, and the business does not see IT or DevOps as a facilitator to be able to deliver their product quicker, faster, smarter, to be able to take advantage of market movement, or just deliver goodness to the customer quicker. Yeah, sorry, that was a big waffly answer.
That's all right. I think it's agreed. And like from my perspective, if I look at it, tech now reminds me of the nerdy kid who's kind of got thrust into the limelight, who had no real social skills. And a lot of the places that we walk into, the biggest problem is not that people who are, self-sufficient and very capable in DevOps can't do a particular role. It's that, one, I don't think they quite understand the really important relationship they need to have with the business, and two, they don't speak the business's language. So if you can deliver a pipeline 5 minutes faster, well, what does that mean for me as a business outcome? Does that mean you can give me my features faster? Does that mean it's going to be more reliable for the customer? How do you translate that technical delivery into something that means something for the business?
Yeah, so this is why there's two things that spring to mind on this, and they usually, excuse me, I always feel very self-conscious these days, coughing in front of other people for some reason. I mean, obviously, the first thing to try and narrow, to narrow that gap between, the techies and the business is via the invaluable function of testing. Like if you can write some good quality business-focused tests in there. Excuse me. The second thing I think you touched on there is, we were promised that, this word DevOps pictures up this wonderful embrace, between operations and the developers. They're down having a beer with each other, and it's all just going to be wonderful. We're just going to bridge that gap, and there's not going to be this, chuck it over the wall from test into production. That's never going to happen. We're all going to work together. What a crock! There's my lights just gone out again. Fantastic. Sorry, but Zoom conditions, electricity shortages, nothing will stop this podcast.
No, we're going to power forward.
Forward.
We're very agile around here. We'll just, we'll adjust on the fly.
Listen, I am doing it in sprints here, I'll tell you. Sprinting towards the light now so you can see me. Normally, if somebody says, don't go towards the light, then I listen to them, Yeah, so you've got, the devs and the ops. And one of the fundamental things, of course, are the temperament differences between those people. The devs are, as Hippocrates said, oh, the lights come back on again, fantastic. As Hippocrates said many, many moons ago, there's 4 different temperament types, and one of them is what's known as a melancholic. And melancholic people it's become like a synonym for being sad now. But melancholic people are incredibly detail focused. They cannot picture the blue sky, big picture thing. They want to live by themselves, in their own world. They just want to be put in a cupboard, basically, where they can code. See if you can find out which particular type of people we're talking about here. The devs are predominantly like that. They're not that sort of social, and they, like, if they did not have to speak to the customer for the rest of their lives, or most of their teammates, probably, they'd be really, really happy. Now, by contrast, you get people who are ops focused, so it's all about the relationship with their customers. They have to be able to have those communication skills. And if they don't, then they'll be really bad at their job. So how on earth all that is going to fit together? And that's actually one of the reasons that one of the very next events that we're going to be running is around soft skills, to try and give these devs the best chance, and the engineers the best chance that they can have around communicating with fellow human beings, so they can get on better at work, so they can get on better interviewing, and they can socialize and form more trust-filled relationships quicker. Very passionate about that.
Yeah, I think that it's a very important part. I mean, if you look back 15, 20 years, if you were to go and get someone to build you a website, it was a $10,000 plus exercise, right? Yep. Today, you don't need to see anyone. There are so many service providers, Wix, Squarespace, all these guys who you can build something that looks pretty slick out of the box. And from my perspective, what I'm seeing on the market is that the developer is now in the crosshairs, that if you have a developer who cannot speak the business language, then they will go elsewhere. They will find something off the shelf. They will outsource it to a third party to provide that solution. So the days of you being very, very prominent with the ability to code and deliver solutions really mean nothing. If you're right, you don't have those soft skills, then unfortunately there's some dark days ahead that I can see. It's
so important, especially as we start to align with site reliability engineering principles, where it's about operationalizing your code, in effect. So there really is no distinct difference between, the developers writing their code and it going straight into operations and providing business, providing value to the business. There is always sight of the customer. There's always conversations with the customer to try and improve the business value, that is being developed. Now, I know that there'll probably be a lot of devs out there, the ones probably in the not too bright category or the not too forward thinking category that may just refuse and go, hey, I'm not going to speak to anybody because I don't need to do that. I don't feel comfortable doing it. I don't want to do it. I'm going to go get a job somewhere else because there's lots of other companies that will take on my skills. But they probably need to wake up and smell the roses on that one, as the focus to bring value to the customer quicker, sort of increases. And I really, really hope it does. It's going to be really good for everybody, apart from those devs that don't want to speak to people. They're going to have to learn. No option.
And do you find in the SDLC, or the software delivery lifecycle, that does deliver to the business, are you finding that the bias towards investment, resources, and working on things in DevOps or continuous integration or anything like that is around the coding, the build, and the testing, away from the design and the requirements and so forth? Is it really around the build and testing still?
I'm so sorry, Mike. The Zoom let me down just a little bit. Can you repeat the question?
Is you're finding that the bias of investment in DevOps is still around the build process and testing?
I think there is still, I don't see a huge focus around investment with testing. Yet, if you speak to just about anybody out there and say, hey, do you think that your customers would value from testing? There's absolutely, everybody says yes. And then if you ask any of the devs, what does testing actually mean to them? Invariably, you hear something about the internals of a JVM being mentioned. There's some metrics that are being captured inside inside an app engine. And I'm going, no, how do you know if your customers love you or hate you? Oh, well, we've got some metrics that are going, and this typically, when these metrics, no, what about doing a little bit of monitoring, approximating user workflow? Maybe the top 5 things that your customers have got to do for them to be happy, smiley, and continue to pay you money. How are we going to do that? I've got no idea. So, yeah, I wish people, those are the tests, obviously, that are going to add most value in the early stages. You can instrument all the widgets sort of under the hood afterwards, but I'm not seeing a lot of that. I'm still seeing a lot of teams that are investing on just basically bringing in more DevOps people, or trying to get more out of less people as well. I'm seeing both of them out there. That sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but yeah, I'm seeing the recruitment has not slowed down, but I think the requirements have increased. But I'm also hearing a lot about people who have, as a result of the COVID stuff, there's been some staff shed and increased pressure to try and do more with less people in the teams as well. Yeah, which of course I'm sure everybody does as they're trying to get through this.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably another disadvantage we have at the moment, is that those who are hiring probably have a lot more power than traditionally they would, because of, I guess, the fear that COVID's brought in regards to, well, we want someone that has to meet all these criteria, or really we're not going to, consider it. And it's interesting to talk on that point, Stephen, because, one of the first things that came up was someone who was a full stack was expected to know everything top to bottom and be immaculate at it, which, we found is a very, very hard person to quantify. When you're looking for someone to come on board, if you're leading, a transformation activity regarding, building a DevOps chapter in a client, what are some of the things you look for when you're bringing on DevOps staff to work directly with you?
One of the first questions that I ask these people, and it's a little bit polarizing, but it lets me know how their brain works, and maybe an indication of their character. And what I tell them is, I've got $1 trillion that I can put into their bank account overnight. I could choose to do that because I've got magic powers. So let's just assume that I'm going to use those magic powers and put $1 trillion into your bank account tomorrow. What are you going to do when you wake up and check your bank balance? It floors the living daylights out of just about everybody. And of course, my whole point there is to try and provide such an enormously massive sum of cash that you couldn't actually spend it. So I'm listening for people who are going to say, hey, I know exactly what I want. You know, I would be helping people to do this, this, and this. And that tells me something about the person. You know, they've got their life in order. They know what they want. And maybe me as an employer, I can help them get what they want. Yeah, because if I take that approach, do you think that there's going to be a massively trust-filled relationship that's going to happen off the back of that? And that is the first layer of cementing people together that I think is so, so important. Sure, they need to be able to talk. They need to be able to articulate themselves. And sure, they need some technical skills. And likewise, if I'm asking that question and somebody says, you know, their answer perhaps is, well, I'd still come into work tomorrow. That's fantastic. I may provoke them and say, hey, how about, you know, do you think you might maybe not come in until 9:30 instead of 9 o'clock? And I'll listen to their answer again and see if the truth comes out. I find that's a very good one, you know, for helping to get an insight into the person's soul, and into their character, and into their ability to be able to communicate as well, which is so, so important. And I'm also finding that when I'm looking for next contract, I'm also finding that those communication skills and soft skills are getting higher up the list, which I'm really, really pleased about as well. You know, because at the end of the day, you need to be able to do that. I think, you know, we've already covered this.
Especially collaborating over Zoom more often too, you know, over remote working also very important. That's a big catch cry at the moment this year. I know it's been discussed a lot. With DevOps itself from a strategic point of view and from a strategy, so companies obviously you would think would have a strategy or a plan for it. We all know that's some places do and some don't. Some go straight for the tech and try and implement it and do things from an ad hoc point of view. What's your experience? Do you see when you walk into different businesses, different conversations, that there is actually a plan or a strategy in place to support DevOps? Or is it more?
That's a very interesting question. Again, I typically have been working in the really big shops, you know, like your true sort of enterprise, you know, whether it be bank or, you know, telco or whatever. So I'm generally pretty removed from the people who are making those sort of decisions. Nevertheless, I am frequently involved in listening into like town halls and all the rest of that, and also, you know, having Yammer channels inflicted on me where, you know, where all the execs do their marketing. And very, very, very rarely do I see any connection between a plan that is being announced, that we've been very, very successful and this is great and this is what we're going to do, and anything that is happening on the ground. Normally, when we receive those sort of communications, the general response from the people in the team is, I've no idea where they get this information from. There's still a massive disconnect. So although there may very well be a plan up there, I think there's a massive gap again between the people that are actually doing the work and this plan that's been put together from up top. Either that, or I have not heard of any sort of strategic plans that are being articulated to me. Maybe with the smaller companies, that may be more so or more evident, but not from the bigger ones.
No, definitely. And the reason why I asked the question is Carl and I, particularly over our career and going around talking to different businesses from a product perspective, is the word, the strategic side of achieving efficiency for the workforce or for the company, cost reductions, and resource augmentation. Okay, so obviously there's a lot of headcount in certain parts of the business or IT structure. They want to redirect them to other work or retrain them. What are you finding? Is it a speed and efficiency thing for DevOps? Is it a cost reduction strategy? Is it a resource augmentation, or all of them? What's your experience? What's the common theme from that perspective?
I think that I mean, everybody who goes down the DevOps journey is looking for for that panacea. The dev is going to be able to check in some code, and the customer is going to receive the value straight away. I think there's very, very few companies that have got it down to that sort of level. I think most people, when they're making changes within DevOps and automation, it is, as you say, around cost reduction. But the efficiencies is also important.
Are they focusing on cost reduction as quick as possible with the DevOps strategy? Is it obviously you discussed getting the developer to check your code and get the speed going to deploy that to production to the business as possible. But is there the cost reduction of that too? So the benefits are to realize something within 12 months, maybe 6 months. But you might bring in a workforce of contractors to implement DevOps. As a lot of organizations do. But the whole purpose is to get them to produce the outcome quickly so they can realize the benefit. Is that happening? Is it working?
As I mentioned on the previous one, I've been so removed from any strategic stuff that I haven't really heard anybody articulating what the goals of that strategy are, nor how they're being measured. I don't know. In fact, I don't remember being at any place where I was where they were actually measuring the DevOps process.
Okay.
So they have no idea what the baseline is, for example.
Interesting. And that one, so because at the moment, what I've seen, particularly last decade, is a lot of venture capital investment in automation of development work and testing. That's a huge part, right? There to help or get efficiencies out of that. But what are you finding around design, software design, maybe automation or requirements automation in the future? Is there a place for that? Have you seen some of that in some of your journeys, or is it still just dev?
I think that there's some interesting promise that's coming out of the AI space, with regards to being able to translate, do things like voice recognition to be able to capture business requirements, perhaps in a standardized testing language, perhaps. That would be quite an interesting little venture.
Things, I guess, Steve, and when we go through a lot of the new sort of ways of working, I would call them, we've looked at things like at the agile way of working, DevOps, with a lot of promises and everything else, and then there's sort of a shift away from traditional waterfall style development approach to software. But is there anything that waterfall gets really, really right that we should probably inherit and take with us? Like for me, one of the big things that I've seen is that the speed to code and deliver and release recently has been excellent. It's improved dramatically. But there's so much mark missing in regards to people who actually functionally understand potentially the architecture of a customer solution, or the requirements are misread or misinterpreted, and those were things traditionally that the waterfall world got right. So is there anything that you can think of that we should inherit from the old world and pull forward?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I've been working in so many projects where the specs, because there's such a big gap between the code and the customer, let's say, and I think that the business maybe are a bit sort of afraid of IT, especially in some of the bigger shops. So they are people at the end of the day, which means that they've got pride and they've got ego and all the rest of that stuff. They don't want to make themselves out to be a fool, but they cannot articulate what they actually want in a way that somebody that's got an IT brain will be able to understand, let alone be able to write some proper sort of test specifications. So as a result, feature specs and stuff like that are not defined as well as they could be, which leads to frustration, extra cost, loss of productivity, because you get the spec coming on through and you build according to that rough spec that's maybe not been put together by a business analyst. It's just like best effort. So you need to create your own acceptance criteria, even better, not as the case may be. And you end up building something that's a shiny blue thing. And then, it starts to progress towards production. And then somebody says, actually, no, we need it in red. Everything's looking fine apart from that. You go, yeah, no problem. I'll do the red thing for you. They come back, no, we need it an inch to the left. But other than that, it's looking really good. And it just drives you nuts. So I think that probably from the old world, I think that we used to specify the actual, get the spec right, right from the start and get it validated, and the business understood exactly what was, involved with that and what the deliverables would be. I think that we've dropped that. And I think maybe one of the reasons may be, especially in the bigger shops, there's too many layers, there's too many organizational layers that are involved in it as well, which means there's lots of opportunity for lots of people to protect their own egos and all the rest of that stuff, which just removes you from IT that much more. So it's not good. You have to be able to do an awful lot of detective work to be able to clarify some of the details that are missing. And you really need those soft skills to be able to do that. So that's what I've been finding.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, a lot of things can be solved with a simple conversation or the way to drive it as well. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was, I mean, you've worked some very large companies. You've worked for Macquarie. You're currently working with Telstra. There has been, I guess, this push for a lot of these organizations, including, the big four, the banks, to, sort of centralize the structure and become more team centric. But are we doing the wrong thing here with large organizations? Like, one of the things I like to reference is, I'm a big fan of engineering and looking to the past. And if I go look at Lockheed, for example, and Kelly Johnson, who built Skunk Works, that built some of the most amazing planes that have ever existed, he basically took the best people into a team and shut them out from everyone else. So, I mean, is there some, too much collaboration sometimes where we kind of trip over ourselves by saying, yes, let's be all inclusive and get everyone involved, but is that slowing us down or creating more problems as well?
Only 110%, unfortunately. There's a number of, with Agile, it's all about collaboration at the end of the day. And everybody's buzzword is, we need to be more agile, need to be agile, need to implement Agile. Agile 2.0 is better than 1.0. And what's that thing like silvery and bronzy? Oh yeah, irony involved in that. Because you spend so much time in the ceremony meetings or, catching up with people. It's massively frustrating. I have a solution for it, potentially, which maybe people can take a note of. There's a website which is called something like veryexpensivemeeting.com. And what you do is you open up this website. The person who has called the meeting has to open up this website and post in the number of people that they are inviting with the average salary per year. And it will it's a running clock. So you start it when you go in there. And after 5 minutes, if you've got 20 people on the call, it's going to show you've just spent $10,000 or whatever. So at least it's going to encourage some responsibility, because I don't think that there is that much responsibility. It's just a case of, hey, invite everybody, chuck out some breadcrumbs. You might get lucky and find the right person in there.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. And someone who spends a lot of time in Zoom meetings that just, could have been resolved very simply if someone had made a decision, then, it's incredibly frustrating. But I guess, does that step into another problem, which is, are we in IT too scared sometimes to make that decision or push back on the business? Like, is there that sort of fear aspect back for the business because we think, well, they pay the bills, we better just keep them happy, and we spin the wheels sometimes by doing that. I mean, I know personally, I've been guilty of that in the past, not actually actively contributing, but being sort of a passive intake, so to say.
Yep. Well, I don't think that there are that many people that are pushing back. I probably am one of those exceptions, and even then, I should in theory be conflicted, because I'm a contractor at the end. I'm a contractor at the end of the day. I love going to meetings. No, I am, of course, jesting in that one. But there'll be an awful lot of contractors, maybe, and consultants that have got no issue whatsoever with going into these meetings because they're going to get paid anyway.
Mm.
Why don't these organizations just put a couple of rules around booking meetings? For instance, the basic stuff. There must be an agenda. Meetings are for decisions only, so you should be socializing whatever you're going to be talking about beforehand. Let people read it in their own time. So at least when you come into this forum, you know exactly what you're going to be in there for. It's going to be concise, and if anybody waffles off topic, security needs to grab them by the armpits and drag them outside. If Stephen ruled the world, it is a real problem. I mean, it's causing so much productivity loss, so much money, involved with that. And there's no responsibility, about it. Nobody's taking charge of it. I've never seen anybody try to stamp on it. And context switching is a nightmare for the developers and for other people as well. Which means that you're trying to time division multiplex, between all these different things that you got to get done, and it's just not good.
And just to support Carl's point, are there too many people involved with some of these projects of DevOps implementations? It's just overcooked, perhaps.
There are pretty large teams, I've seen out there. I just think that the whole purpose of why meetings are run and how they should be run is something that probably needs to be evaluated. I think that's especially so, or reevaluated, especially so in this COVID world. Where we're flicking around Zoom invites, and we're just inviting absolutely everybody to it. I've seen that the CC list. I don't know whether it's just me, but it seems to have got bigger, since we've all been doing the remote working bit. And it just drives me nuts. I used to have this. I used to work for the NHS in the UK, third largest employer on the planet, and everything was going fine until one day I just got so hacked off that I went down and I bought this coffee cup, and on the coffee cup it said "Meetings?" ? A practical alternative to work. My time and my days were numbered at that point.
But obviously we've gone through some of the challenging parts of a DevOps implementation and implementation in general. What are some of the positive things? What are some of the good achievements that you've seen, with DevOps?
Some of the good things, I suppose, from my perspective, it's seeing when we've got good use of CI, where you've got a script runner in the middle of it all, which is helping to orchestrate the delivery of tested code a bit smarter. That's really, maybe it's my sort of system and wizardry that would have to go on sort of underneath it all. I just love all that stuff. Overly used. I mean, definitely sort of plays on my heartstrings a bit, to be able to see features, being able to reach the customers a bit quicker, at the end of the day. And that's after they've been tested, after they've been versioned. So at least we've got some nice consistency going. That's the sort of stuff I like. And I think all the devs that I'm working with, when we get that stuff working, it's good.
Wonderful. Well, Stephen, thank you very much for your time today. What's the best way for people who are going to be watching this, I guess, to get in touch? Should they have a gander on LinkedIn? Should they visit the Meetups site? Or what's the next event that's coming up, and what should they be excited about?
So tomorrow, even, the best place to have a look at is a URL we've got on our website, which is webinars, plural.meetupmadness.com. You'll be able to find all of the scheduled stuff that we've got there, Twitter, at Meetup Madness, LinkedIn, if you want to connect up with me, or with the Meetup Madness company up on LinkedIn, you can follow us there. We promise you that there's no possibility that you will miss any of our great events.
Awesome. And we'll put a link for those descriptions definitely in the footer of this show. So to everyone who's watching, thank you. And we'll definitely leave those details. Stephen, a big heartfelt thank you from myself and Michael. We know that we've had a lot of technical issues getting onto Zoom today, which of course the irony being a technical podcast. But we thank you for your time. And look, it really is appreciated to have a talk, not just about the technical aspects, but also some of those soft skills and some of the business reference points, I think, which is what we're going to be aiming to put this podcast to and show people the importance of actually having those skills within the IT sector as well.
Yeah, you need to watch out for our next soft skills events. Definitely make sure that we get the URLs for them.
Make sure to share those away for sure.
Absolutely. We'll share those with everyone. Wonderful, Stephen. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
All right.